Ghana went down in history as being responsible for the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. And I am so glad that they decided to change that narrative, because they are now going down in history as being the first African country to open their doors to diasporans wishing to return back to the African continent. Recently, diasporans received their citizenship here in Ghana. Let's get into this video.
Granted citizenship to several African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans as part of the Country Beyond the Return initiative to attract resettlement of Africa descendants. In 2019, Ghana successfully hosted the Year of Return with raft of activities at home and abroad to encourage the descendants of those who were forcibly sent into slavery to return home to Africa. Ghana has become a repatriation hotspot for many Black Americans over the last few years, since the country hosts, among others, the many castles and forts which were used in the slave trade. Ghana was used as a slave trade hub during the transatlantic slave trade. The Portuguese built the first permanent slave trading post to Elmina on the Gold Coast, now Ghana. This eventually passed through Dutch and English hands, and by the 18th century was handling 30,000 slaves each year. According to documented history, between 1650 and 1900, 10.2 million enslaved Africans arrived in the Americas from the 8 regions in Africa used for the slave trade. About 80% of the Africans who were enslaved and transported in the transatlantic slave trade went through the many castles and forts which can be found in Ghana.
To signal our collective determination that never again will the African peoples allow themselves to be captured and sold into slavery as commodities in foreign unknown lands to help build their wealth from whose enjoyment they were largely excluded. It would provide a bridge for the reunification of the global African family, to construct a new future of progress and prosperity for the Black peoples of the world. And would also put the spotlight on Ghana's Pan-African credentials, showcasing Ghana's vision of bringing unity and dignity back to the process of social and economic development in Africa and in the African diaspora.
For some, Ghana is a destination where worries about safety and racism are non-existent. For others, Ghana is a place where expatriates feel they can effortlessly thrive while connecting with their ancestral roots. Ghana is the only African country which grants free residential permit to any Black person born outside Africa to live in the country as long as they want through their right of Abode law. Upon living in Ghana for some few years, citizenship are automatically granted. Here are some of the statements of African Americans whose African citizenship were restored to them.
Now it's gonna turn up, oh. Oh yeah, now I can do a lot more. You know, I really want to get into a lot of things like real estate. I want to do, you know, business, a lot of business. I want to do entertainment still. I want to travel across West Africa on my new Ghanaian passport. Hey, Charlie, no more visa.
I'm so pleased to have finally received my citizenship today. The first visit to Ghana was in 1970 when I was a much younger person. And I've always felt at home here in Ghana. I now have a home here. And we built a house about 10 years ago, and we're spending time here and look forward to being productive.
Grantee for citizenship, and actually the way I'm dressed now, I wanted to let the government of Ghana know how much we're appreciative of everything that they're doing for us. But 2 weeks ago, I was in Stu as in Koso Ohene, and more so. So my new name is Nana Akwesi Dentra. And I just wanted to show that we love Ghana and that we are continuing to invest and engage in everything that we're doing in the country.
Oh, I'm very excited. You know, it's a very, what should I say? Just an exciting day for us. You know, many of us have been waiting for this for a long time. Like me, I've been living in Ghana 20 years. I've been married to my husband 43 years. So, you know, the people, the country itself, and, you know, everybody here is so welcoming. That's the thing. It's a very pleasant place to live. The people are pleasant. The environment is pleasant, you know, and we feel free here.
I always want to come here to meet and greet and help my brothers and sisters. always. And I just happened to be Ghana. I'm glad I came to Ghana. It's a wonderful country. Such wonderful, warm people.
Excellent. I feel great. It's been a long time coming. I'm very happy. I feel fulfilled. And I feel like it's really a dream come true for me. My life is unfolding beautifully in Ghana. And I'm happy to finally get Ghana citizenship. It's a really big deal.
It is an honor for me, on behalf of His Excellency the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to welcome you all to this memorable occasion on the swearing-in of our brothers and sisters of the African American and Caribbean diaspora community as Ghanaians. I'll add again. The Ministry of the Interior, after a careful scrutiny of the applications of 126 members of the diaspora community, recommended the grant of Ghanaian citizenship by His Excellency the President to our brothers and sisters. He granted it, and therefore we are here today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, following the illustrious tradition of our first president, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, George Padmore, and particularly that of Dr. Y.E.B. Du Bois, Pan-Africanism has remained both the cornerstone and the unique cliché of Ghana's foreign policy. This tradition, His Excellency the President has rekindled and demonstrated by the establishment of the Diaspora Affairs Directorate under the office of the President. He wants them under him, under his eagle eyes. And what a team we have, led by Brother Ababio. The Year of Return program in 2019 was further to demonstrate government's commitment to this. In a related development, the beyond the return activities currently being pursued by the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture is a further step in the right direction. I am glad to state that you are our own people who have chosen to return home and make Ghana your preferred home. You are welcome and you are assured of our hospitality, Akwaba.
I think it is a spiritual healing for those who are receiving this citizenship. As you know, some years ago, they were forced into migration when they didn't have any choice. And for those who went away to the plantation farms several years ago, even though it's about more than 400 years, those who have found the descendants who have found their way back to Ghana are looking for that spiritual healing, are looking for not just the citizenship that we have given them, by restoration. We are restoring citizenship for them. So when a person of this kind is getting a citizenship, it is not the same as Ghana giving citizenship to a Lebanese, to an Indian, to an American, to a white, a Caucasian, or a British guy. This is a different sort of ceremony, which is why the Interior Ministry and the Diaspora Affairs Office finds it necessary to organize something special, and on occasion like this, give the citizenship back to them. So it is a restoration of the citizenship that they have lost so many years ago, which we have given back to them.
What a memorable experience these diasporans just recently received. I can just imagine like their excitement on that day when they received citizenship. It's like when you've been gone and you've been abroad for so long and finally you are welcomed back home with open arms. Ghana just did an amazing job just embracing the diaspora. And I don't know that any other African country has really taken that initiative to just really help make this transition of African Americans returning back to the continent. But I'm hoping and praying that Ghana has set the tone and every other country will join in on this thing and do exactly what Ghana has done, and that's just to help African Americans return back to the continent with ease. I think now it's time for us to start having a discussion, right? So as more and more people are returning from America and they're choosing to relocate here to Ghana, we now need to consider, how are we all going to live together in harmony? How are African Americans going to come and be at peace living here amongst Ghanaians? And if you choose to relocate to other African countries, how are you going to make this merge happen in harmony? Because we're coming from two different cultural backgrounds. You know, being raised in the States is, you know, or from various places, Jamaica, whatever place you're coming from, is totally different from life here on a continent. So it's like we're learning each other, you know, all over again. I think in my previous video, I briefly mentioned this topic of conversation of just how we have to learn each other, right? It's like being gone from your family for so long. And then boom, you find yourself around those family members again. And it's like, you know, Wanda done had, you know, 2 more kids. Tommy, he done left a wife and now he with, you know, a girlfriend. You know, it's a lot happening. So it's like you have to get back into the swing of things and you have to relearn, you know, your family members all over again. It's the same concept of African Americans moving from America onto the continent. We have to learn each other. We have to figure out what we've been missing. You know, likewise, Ghanaians got to figure out what they've been missing when it comes to us, you know? So it's kind of like this merge. I feel like that needs to happen. It needs to be a further discussion. And we need to really figure out what's next, right? What is next? As more and more people start making the decision to relocate here to the continent, what's next? What do we do? How do we go forward? We've talked about investments and different projects that's going on here. And now we need to start considering, how are we actually going to function together? You have to start thinking about how are you going to adjust to life here on the continent, because it's very different than life in the States. Obviously, you're more privy to certain things in the States than you are here on a continent. And, you know, you have to consider all of these things when you're making the conscious decision to move here. Ghana is really setting a bar high in terms of turning around the narrative that we've known for centuries and generation upon generation. It's been too long overdue since we African Americans have been separated from the continent, and since Africans here have been separated from us being in America. And so now this merge has to happen, and we got to start having a different conversation, especially if you're traveling here and you have small children and you're considering bringing your kids here. Don't let them be in their teenage years, because that's a whole nother preparatory discussion to be had. If they're a little bit younger, it's a little bit easier, because, you know, they don't know what's going on anyway. And 9 times out of 10, they're excited about whatever it is that you want for their life. They just happy. But when you have children who are in their teenage years, you really have to consider how you're going to have this conversation about moving and relocating to Africa, and why you feel as the parent it is the best decision for them. They're so accustomed to the way things are in the States, and because the narrative is so bad when it comes to the African continent, unfortunately, the younger generation have been plagued by these ill talks of Africa. And so when they think of the continent, they just thinking, oh no, it's a third world country. It ain't no cars, it's dirt roads. You have like this just very terrible narrative that has been intentionally placed upon the African continent, and for a good reason. You know, they don't want us, okay, returning and taking our resources and our wealth from America and bringing it back here to the continent. Do you think that they want that? No. They want to keep you enslaved mentally and in bondage physically by working your heart out until you die, all for the sake of continuing to build up America. Slavery has not been abolished. It has just changed faces. That's it. It went from chains around your arms and your legs to chains around your mind. It's a mental slavery. And for me, that's way worse than any type of, you know, chain that you could put around somebody's arm or leg. At least you could take that off and be free. But when they got your mind, oh, that's a different type of slavery. I remember growing up as a child and seeing commercials on TV. And in the commercials, y'all have an organization begging for money. and claiming that they are seeking donations to help the children here in Africa. And the picture that they painted of these children in Africa were naked, living in impoverished areas, a big belly, flies all around them, and dying slowly of HIV. That is the image that was projected upon me at a younger age coming up. So this propaganda that they've set forward has been intentionally done to hinder our minds and to keep us from returning here to the continent. And it's so sad because when I hear the views and the opinions of people in the States when it comes to Africa, it's just like they have this hatred for Africa. And it's just like, it just goes to show how we have been taught to self-hate, how we have been taught to hate the color of our skin, to hate the country in which we come from. It's been this mirror effect where they're telling you what's good is wrong and what's wrong is good. And so we have this whole misconstrued perception of reality. Ghana has done a great job here. Big humble thanks to the president of Ghana for making this all possible and setting the expectations for the continent. So that's all I have to say. Let me know your views. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. Be sure to drop a comment. I want to hear what y'all have to say. What is your take on this? I think this is a great thing. So until next video, make sure that y'all like, share, and of course subscribe. See y'all soon.